Ketchum is one of the most iconic characters in all of fiction. He is undoubtedly the most well-known protagonist in all of anime, and I don't think it's too crazy to say he is just as iconic as characters like Spider-Man, Optimus Prime, or even Homer Simpson. I mean, everyone knows this 10-year-old and his Yellow Mouse best buddy. And that's thanks in large part to being the main character of the Pokemon anime for 25 plus years and over 1,200 episodes. And so today, I'm gonna do a deep dive analysis into Ash's character, as well as his growth as a person and a trainer. So let's take a look at how the 10-year-old from Pallet Town went from most hated to the champion Godflow. It all began in Pallet Town, on the eve of Ash's birthday. He was so optimistic to begin as a Pokemon trainer, but unfortunately, his journey starts off on the wrong foot as he oversleeps and misses out on picking a traditional starter. So early on in Kanto, Ash was a straight up noob. He was ignorant, immature, and weak. Because of this, it should come as no surprise that he struggled to successfully capture Pokemon, and he didn't actually win some of the traditional gym badges. And this is one of the biggest reasons as to why Ash's Charizard didn't really listen to him. Charizard knew that Ash was not yet a trainer worthy of his epic power, and ultimately, this is what cost Ash his Kanto League run. Don't get me wrong though, Ash did actually perform pretty well for a first-time trainer in the Kanto League, but he kinda got lucky in a few of these battles, especially that first round matchup with Mandy. But his luck unfortunately ran out in the round of 16 against Richie, who at the time was just a much more skilled trainer than Ash. Then after this loss, we still even see how immature Ash is, as he holds his head low and can barely even face Richie. However, everything changed in the Orange Islands. While many forget this arc in the anime, it actually did a ton for Ash's character. His skills as a trainer got tested in a variety of ways, while also getting the opportunity to closely connect with his Pokemon, including Charizard. And Ash was finally able to earn his respect thanks to nursing Charizard back to full health. The Orange Islands arc came to a climax in Ash's final battle with Drake, which was actually the first full 6v6 battle in the whole anime. It was here that both Ash and his Pokemon got to show off just how far they had come. But after a long and grueling battle, Ash and Pikachu came out on top. And like that, he had won his first ever championship and was now destined for the Johto region. Ash entered Johto as a confident and intelligent trainer. In this region, Ash had successfully won every single Johto badge in traditional fashion. And while Ash still relied on his Kanto Mons for the bigger battles, he still decided to capture and use new Johto Mons to further enhance his skills. It was also during this time that Ash really began his role as a hero in the series. It was during the Johto League that we really got to see Ash come into his own as a powerful trainer. There was a lot less luck and more skill here in Ash's performance. Regardless of what Brock says, Ash now understood typing matchups and created dynamic and powerful teams that covered each other's weaknesses. The Johto League and original series as a whole came to a climax in Ash's quarterfinal matchup with Gary. This battle had everything and was filled with some hard-hitting Pokemon. And with Ash's back up against the wall, he put his faith into Charizard, who was able to come back down 3-1 and help Ash conquer his oldest and greatest rival ever. This was honestly the perfect way to cap off Ash's original series growth, by defeating the rival who was always ahead of him with the Pokemon that challenged him most as a trainer. Sure, Ash went on to lose in the next round to Harrison, but it didn't really matter. Ash gave it his all here in Johto, and overall, he had shown tremendous growth throughout the original series. But then, enter Pokemon Advanced. In Hoenn, Ash decided he would start completely fresh by leaving every Pokemon that wasn't Pikachu back at Oak's lab. And that's why in the Advanced series, Ash began to take on the role of a mentor to the newbie trainer May. And while he was actually a pretty solid mentor to May, this kind of inflated his ego and turned him into a bit of an overconfident and cocky trainer.
But my opponent wasn't exactly the best. It would have been better to have more of a challenge.
And it's because of this that Ash took some major butt whoopings at the hands of more powerful trainers. Ash was honestly quite a jerk during a lot of Hoenn, and he really only cared about himself and his own interests. Luckily, these helped humble Ash, and this forced him to do a bit more training with his Pokemon in some new, unique ways that he had never done before. Unfortunately, Ash had a somewhat forgettable showing in the Hoenn League. However, this was not the end of Advanced Ash, because we of course had the post-league Battle Frontier arc. It was during this arc that Ash faced some of the strongest trainers he had ever gone up against. So knowing this, Ash decided to bring back some of his older Mons and created some dream teams spanning across 3 different regions of Pokemon. Ash really got pushed here during the Battle Frontier, as he had to use just about everything he had learned up until that point, and even then he still took a fair amount of losses. But after many failures and tribulations, Ash was able to conquer the Battle Frontier. And at this time, this was undoubtedly his most impressive accomplishment as a trainer. So much so that Ash was even offered the opportunity to become a Battle Frontier brain himself. But of course, he rejects the opportunity because he still wanted to grow and travel the world. Then after a homecoming to Pallet Town, Ash decided to square off with Gary and his Electivire, who at the time was a Pokemon that both Ash and viewers alike had never seen before. And even though Ash had just conquered the Battle Frontier, he fell to the likes of Gary and his new Sinnoh Pokemon. This showed Ash that it is a big world and there is still much to explore, and that there will always be stronger trainers out there. So like that, Ash set his sights on Sinnoh. Now, many believe Ash's run in Sinnoh to be his best in the whole series, and this is totally understandable. Here he brings the confidence and experience that he had gained from the past 3 regions, while also cutting out the cockiness he had in Hoenn. They once again had Ash play the role of mentor here, but this time with Dawn. Dawn was a bit more of a dynamic character here when compared to May, and she actually played a major influence on Ash himself during this series. Ash was very involved with helping Dawn achieve her goals as a coordinator, and along the way, Ash picked up some major battling strategies from her, like the Ice Aqua Jet or the Counter Shield. This really helped illustrate just how far Ash had grown from the previous series to now. But it was also here in Sinnoh that Ash was pushed his hardest from a psychological standpoint. Early on, we meet Paul, a brutal trainer who values power and raw potential over everything, which is a stark contrast to Ash, who instead values love as a trainer. And throughout Sinnoh, we see the 2 ideologies clash, and honestly, for a very long time, it really seemed like Paul's training methods were superior. That was until Chimchar. Paul's training strategy was just not right for it, so Paul decided to release it. But Ash almost instantly offered it a spot on his team. And while there was definitely some trouble along the way while training Chimchar, Ash finally got the chance to prove himself in the Sinnoh League. And after a couple of hard opening round matches, Ash squared off with Paul in what would be their final matchup. This battle was long, epic, and filled with strategy. But when it came down to its final moments, Infernape stood tall, kept on fighting, and got his get back. Finally, Ash had bested Paul and proved himself to be the better trainer. Ash was now at an all-time high with regards to his strength. So, what did the writers do to counter this? Whatever. Let's just move on with Unova. Regression. When you have a long-running character in storytelling, it's something that just happens for one reason or another. But man, was it frustrating here. Black and White Ash is smacked right in the middle of 2 epic versions of Ash, so it really sticks out like a sore thumb. As you probably know, Pokemon Black and Pokemon White were supposed to work as a soft reboot for both the games and anime. So Ash was kind of an idiot, and overall just performed very poorly here in Unova. Luckily, Ash's optimistic mentality and kind-hearted nature still carried over here to Gen 5. But still, this was obviously not a good series for Ash. Let's just move on to Kalos. Now, this was Ash at his coolest. And honestly, this series might have just been the best for his character. Throughout the entire XY series, Ash was very passionate about being the best, and Ash almost instantly set his sights on winning the Kalos League. Ash was very passionate, so much so that other characters around him became just as driven. And we even see it with Alola, who entered the Kalos League just so he could square off with Ash on the biggest stage. It also felt like this was the first time in the anime where every single traveling companion looked up to Ash as a major inspiration. It was also here during the XY series that Ash's hero arc was at its most obvious and blatant. I mean, seriously, in the first few episodes, we see Ash jumping off of buildings to save Pokemon. But honestly, the XY series feels very shonen, so this actually works quite well. And now, how about we wrap up the Kalos series by discussing the role of Ash-Greninja? This Pokemon knew that Ash was a special trainer, and that the two could bring out the best in each other. However, towards the end of Kalos, Ash became a bit too over-reliant on Greninja, and he even overdid it with the transformation a few times. And it's because of this that Ash went on a bit of a losing streak right before the Kalos League. However, after an exile arc in Snowbell City, Ash and Greninja came together to finally master the Ash-Greninja form. So now, Ash heads into the Kalos League at his strongest he had ever been. And it's because of this, Ash was more or less able to breeze through a lot of the early rounds, and ultimately earn a spot in the Kalos League Finals. Now yes, of course, he unfortunately lost here, but Ash took the L like a true champion. He knows that both he and his Pokemon gave it their absolute all. I mean, just look at how much of a contrast there are between these two league losses. Ash had really come a long way. Then after the league, Ash made the very mature choice to release some of his Kalos Pokemon. And while we know it hurt both Ash and his Mons, it's what was best for the Kalos region. Because Ash is a hero who now puts the needs of others before himself. Wow, just another sharp contrast from a previous Ash. Alola was an interesting region for both Ash and the series as a whole. The comedy here in this region seemed to play a large role, while action seemed to have taken a back seat. But luckily, it isn't like this for the whole series. And now, while battling, training, gym battles, and the Pokemon League were no longer the main focus for Ash, it allowed him to appreciate things like the traditions and history of Alola, while also creating some very strong relationships. He learned that sometimes it's okay to just take a chill pill and appreciate life and all that it has to offer. This series was arguably Ash at his most human, but of course, battling and being a strong trainer was still very important to Ash. He was still very dominant in battle for most of the Sun and Moon run. And in Alola, Ash assembled one of his most powerful teams ever. And as I stated earlier in the Kalos segment of this video, Ash was a bit too reliant on Ash-Greninja. And so here, Ash learned from his previous mistakes, and he didn't really have a true regional ace. Every single Pokemon here in Alola got a major moment to shine sometime throughout the series. And it's because of this that Alola was the first ever series where Ash won a regional tournament. Use counter against counter. Those are 4 words that will live on infamously in Pokemon history. Ash had done it. It took over 20 years, but Ash had finally done it. He even then goes on to prove his prowess as a champion in a title defense match with Professor Kukui, which is what I believe to be the anime's best ever battle. But as Ash's time in Alola came to an end, both Ash and his companions alike were emotional. Alola had truly become Ash's second home. During his time here, he had shown tremendous growth, not just as a trainer, but also as a person. The Pokemon Journey's storytelling format was like nothing we had ever seen before from the series. We had a dual protagonist in Go, and the focus of this show was somewhat unclear for a long while. Luckily, neither Ash's character or power as a trainer suffered due to this, as we see Ash pick up right where he left off in Alola. We came to learn that Ash will travel the entire Pokemon world while also competing in the World Coronation series. Ash once again got the opportunity to play the role of hero, and thanks to having his strongest team ever, he protected the Pokemon world while also climbing his way up through the PWC rankings. It wasn't all serious though here in Journeys. Similar to the Sun and Moon series, Ash still found time to have fun and relax. But Journeys also afforded Ash the opportunity to meet up with previous Pokemon and companions. This series really did start to feel like a bit of a victory lap for Ash. But the highs of this series were still arguably some of the most intense ever. The PWC's top tier was of course the Masters 8 tournament. Filled entirely with champion level trainers, Ash did all that he could to gain strength, and he even went through some major arcs with his Mons to master Gigantamaxing and Mega Evolution. But after many battles, Ash made his way into the Ultimate Pokemon Tournament. The 10-year-old was forced to square off with the 3 strongest trainers in the world. And just what did he do? He defied all odds and did what he had to do to become the best. And after some long and visually stunning battles, Ash and his Pikachu did what they set out to do 20-some years ago. Be the very best, like no one ever was. The The Aim to be a Pokemon Master miniseries was a bit of a mixed bag. While many fans, including myself, wanted loose ends tied up, ultimate teams to be created, and major rematches for Ash, we didn't get any of that. Instead, we simply got 11 episodes of what it means to really be a Pokemon Master. It wasn't about capturing legendaries, it wasn't about defeating evil bosses, and it wasn't even really about Ash becoming champion. It was a chance for Ash to reconnect with his old Pokemon and friends while still looking out for others. Because that's what it means to be a true Pokemon Master. Well, now I'm gonna wrap up this video by discussing what I think the future holds for Ash, as well as giving my final thoughts on him as a character. First, with respect to Ash's future, it's very unclear. Anime executives have said that they would be more than open to bringing him back, but only if the moment feels right. I know I'd love to see this, but of course it needs to be done right, and it needs to give the character his much-deserved respect. Now, I'd like to give my thoughts on what Ash Ketchum means to me as a character. So, being a Gen Z baby, I essentially grew up watching Ash my entire life. So he obviously has such a special place in my heart. I went through all the highs and all the lows with Ash. From champion level battles, to being outright ready to quit on the series at times. If Ash Ketchum taught me one thing over these 1,200 plus episodes, it's that we should never give up. He took loss after loss after loss after loss after loss after loss, and he still got back up, ready to take on whatever the world throws at him. He had an almost infectious optimistic attitude and a never say die mentality. I am forever grateful that I turned on the TV as a child to watch this 10-year-old and his yellow mouse take on the Pokemon world. Well guys, that's gonna do it for today's video. I really do hope you enjoyed it. This video was very special to me, as Ash is one of the most influential characters of my life. Please let me know what you think of Ash in the comments below, and definitely drop a like if you enjoyed this video. And be sure to check out these videos on screen for even more fun Pokemon content. Thanks guys, and have a good one.